As the emotions of our Polish trip are winding down, the famous opening sentence from the first video in which Blonnie talked about what was strange for her in Poland. Today, we're recording a follow-up to that video in which she's going to talk about what she loves about Poland. And we're not doing this to make all our Polish audience feel better, but the truth is, Blonnie really loves Poland. So maybe we should have started with that title instead of creating all this controversy that came out from the first video. If you haven't seen it, the link is on the screen right now. And if you have, we certainly hope you'll enjoy this one too.
Before we get to the main subject of this video, our last video was about what an American found strange in Poland. But that's a bit of a misnomer because it was more about what I liked in Poland. So now we're going to talk specifically about what I loved on my visits to Poland. I've been to Poland 4 times now, and every single trip...
4 times?
Yeah. Was it 4 or 3?
I think it was 3 times.
Oh. I've been to Poland 3 times now, and every single time I learned and experienced something else that I really enjoyed and loved about Poland and the people there. I have been raving to all of my friends and family members here in the U.S. about how affordable it is to travel in Poland. Many people here in the U.S. find European vacations to be exotic and some kind of a bucket list item that they definitely want to do one day in their life. And I just keep telling everybody, go to Poland.
What just happened?
We went in there to get internet for your old cell phone, and we got 100 gigabyte plan for $2. I don't understand.
$4.
$4. I'm sorry. Oh, it was double that? Oh, that's expensive. We've never had 100 gigabytes on any plan, and we've spent like so much money on our cell phone plan.
So that is strange positive to you, right?
That's incredibly wonderful. I wonder why everything is so much, like, why is the phone system so much more expensive in the US? That's beyond a bargain.
Go to Poland because it's very, very affordable. The dollar difference makes dining out and even souvenir purchases incredibly affordable. All of the hotels that we stayed in were affordable, and they included breakfast. One story I keep telling people about is our trip to Torun and my favorite restaurant. I found it on Yelp, and it was my favorite restaurant for the whole trip through Poland. It was called Jan Albrecht, I don't know how to say it. But we had food for all 4 of us, plus an appetizer and drinks, and you just cannot get a meal like that for the amount of money that we paid in Poland here in the U.S. Something I found really appealing about Poland itself as a country is how beautiful all of the cities were. I remember when we first went to Poland, or when I first went to Poland with David, and we saw his hometown, which he always described to me as just some little hometown in Poland. We walked to the main city square, and I was just completely enamored with how beautiful everything was. I mean, all of the buildings were a beautiful representation of European architecture and lifestyle. My favorite being in Gdańsk, There were many, many beautiful ones, but that one really stood out to me because of the waterfront and the buildings and all of the unique structures, and it was just amazing walking down that street where all of the amber cellars are. I just thought it was one of the most beautiful cities I've ever been. In the past, I visited Krakow. We also visited Sandomierz, Poznań, Toruń, Warsaw, Gniezno, Wrocław. I thought it was incredible how they rebuilt Warsaw using information and photographs and paintings from the past rather than just making it some modern representation of the city. Malbork Castle was also incredible to me because there was a photograph at the entrance to the castle that showed how destroyed it was after the war, and they rebuilt it. Instead of just letting it stay in ruins and turn into nothing, it's a very important part of Polish history, and I love how they rebuilt it as it was, especially that cathedral. I was in that cathedral for quite a long time and then got to go back again with David and his mom because I thought it was so beautiful.
To bardzo długo zastanawiano się, w jakim stanie i jak odbudować ten kościół. Dlatego to białe, widzi Pani, ten tył, to nie było w ogóle, to było wszystko zburzone. A tutaj właśnie to jest to średniowiecze. O, ten zwornik, jakby Pani kiedyś była, to on i w pomieszczeniach innych był udostępniany dla zwiedzających. Waży podobno 600 kg. Tam jest Maria, Dzieciątko Jezus.
600 kg.
Tak. I widzi Pani, i tak twierdzą, no tak było, że on był autentycznie w tym miejscu, w tym kościele i kiedy runęła wieża na kościół podczas właśnie tego bombardowania, ten zwornik i on w takim stanie przetrwał, jak jest do dzisiaj.
David's family is honestly the only Polish family I have experience with, but from an outsider's perspective of his family, it seems like Polish families are very close-knit, very insular and loving towards each other. So he has all these cousins and they're just like his siblings and they all go to family gatherings together and they're just so close. I mean, I know that we have families like that here in the U.S., and perhaps David's family isn't a representation of all Polish families, but this is about my experience, and my experience with Polish families is they're very close-knit, very loving and kind and wonderful.
Oglądałam amerykański film 2 tygodnie miłości i on tam występował w krótkim epizodzie. To był na pewno on. Szczupły, młody, te włosy takie jasne.
Ale
ja byłam
teraz
niesamowicie zdziwiona.
Ale teraz już te głosy ma lepsze.
A Amerykanki mnie się podobają, bo są takiego gabarytu jak ona.
Chodź tu na wywiad.
I nie miałabym kłopotu z ciuchami, a tam, bo tam są takie ładne kusie, a tutaj muszę łazić.
To jest?
Ty, no to ja jestem i Zbyszek. No.
Gdzie to było? Kiedy?
Były 2 sekundy.
I loved how in Poland everything is relatively accessible to one another because I grew up in Texas and I've heard that Poland is 1/3 the size of Texas. In Poland we drove around the entire country. The longest drive was like 3 hours, and in the United States it would take you 3 hours to get to just the supermarket. I like that everything is relatively close and yet there is such diversity in both the cities and the landscapes. We didn't even get to go to the mountains, but we saw the Baltic Sea, we saw the countryside, and I know I've seen photos and videos of this beautiful mountain area that we hope to go to next time.
Did you enjoy walking around Baranów Sandomierski in the morning?
What? What's it called?
Baranów Sandomierski.
That's the name of the town?
Yeah.
It was a short walk though.
What was your favorite part?
The dog.
A cute thing about Poland I discovered was that the dogs always seem to have an agenda and somewhere to go. They always have to walk with a purpose. Like, we saw some dogs a few times in the same towns and they always seem to be like very, very distinguished dogs with a thought and a focus of where they wanted to go. They seem they have no time for trivial things like petting and love, and if you may or may not have food, they have a mission and they have to go see their great Aunt Esmeralda down the road.
They mean business.
Wait, maybe it's great Aunt Agata. On our trip throughout Poland, I noticed that a lot of the roads are lined with trees that are specifically planted there. They're not just random trees on the highway, but they were trees planted on the local roads on either side, so it was like a natural border for the road, and I just thought those were so beautiful. We do have a few of roads here in the US like that, but in Poland they were overwhelming. Everywhere that we went, every single drive that we went from one city to another had these trees lining the roads, and I thought that they were just really, really beautiful. And obviously they'd been here a long while because the trees are very tall by now, and I wish we had more stuff like that here in the US. Another incredible thing about Poland is there are so many amazing castles all throughout the country, and we kind of learned about these castles, or at least I kind of learned about these castles somewhat towards the end of our trip, but I find them to be amazingly beautiful, and I hope that we get to see more. I've always been infatuated with that type of part of the European culture, because here we have these silly things called Renaissance festivals where they're kind of like small amusement park things that last for a period in the fall. You go ahead. In Poland, people use these castles for real live medieval war reenactments. So basically what I'm saying is I personally have an infatuation with this Renaissance time period, and we cannot see anything like that here in the US, of course, because there were no medieval structures built here in the US.
We're visiting a castle of the Teutonic Order here in Ostruda.
You could have a Renaissance fair around a real castle here. Why don't they do that?
I loved how so many of the buildings and structures in Poland are made with longevity in mind. They're not disposable houses or stick-built homes. All of the buildings are built with the idea that they're going to be there for hundreds of years. And with that in mind, I noticed that even the fences were built to be there for many, many, many years.
This is just one design, but they have so many different pretty patterns, and I like it because they're made out of concrete, which is basically just rock. So when the person is done with this fence, what happens? It just gets crumbled up and it can be put back into the earth or used for something else. Whereas in the United States, we have all these vinyl plastic fences. They don't decompose and naturally go into the ground like something like rock would. And I also like how the color of these is something that fits into the environment. It doesn't stand out. And it's not tied to the petroleum industry, which is how the vinyl fences are made, and their prices fluctuate based on the price of oil, which I think is just ridiculous. I'm so glad we were able to talk about this while we're still in Poland.
One thing that we miss here in the US, because we are such a melting pot of so many different cultures and countries and so many different people, is this very defined sense of culture. We have certain customs, but everybody kind of has their own customs that they intermingle, and I find that in Poland there's a very well-defined sense of culture and history, and this is how things are and this is how we are, and these are our traditions from many, many years past that we still hold on to. And I feel that we don't really have that well-defined sense of culture here in the US because we have so many different countries that have come together. We kind of diluted our own sense of culture. So I really loved how in Poland you have, these are the things that we love, and this is what we know about our country, and these are the defined things that we know are totally Polish, because I feel that we don't really have that in the US, and I loved how you have that in Poland. I envy that. Now on to desserts. I know I talked about food and the meals and the restaurants earlier, but another thing that's amazing about Poland are the desserts. Every time that we went into a restaurant or a cafe that had desserts, it was amazing to just look at all of the different desserts lined up and how beautiful they are. First, that's number one, first and foremost. They're very, very beautiful. They take a lot of skill to make. And number two, as beautiful, as sweet as they look, none of them were overwhelmingly sweet. And you could eat a whole piece of cake and not feel that you just had 3 spoonfuls of sugar shoved into your mouth. They're very well balanced, and I love the light deliciousness of the desserts in Poland, and they didn't make me feel like I was breaking some rule to eat a dessert before dinner. I noticed that in Poland, there are most people in Poland are normal, average weight. They're not chunky or thick in any way, and I feel like that's because you're walking all of the time. In Poland, all of the cities are very walkable from what I experienced, and you eat all the time. I could not keep up with the amount of food you ate, and yet you're a very thin country. You aren't overweight in any way. I think that it's because you're eating very wholesome, solid ingredients without a lot of preservatives, and you're walking all of the time. And I really liked all of the food I had, but it was a little bit too much for me.
And now that we are in Poland, it's only 10 p.m. and it's a party. Look at this homemade food.
Not directly related to Poland as a country itself, but we seem to notice that Polish people are hungry for YouTube, which we love, which means you can expect to see us again there soon, because obviously David loves Poland, I love Poland, and you seem to like seeing us in Poland, so we want to go back again very soon. Polish people don't really have a big sense of self-awareness and pride in their country. I mean, I just feel like they kind of don't care about their country. There's not a sense of nationalism and loyalty. I would never dress in any national colors or any promotion for Poland because I feel like I would be looked at kind of strange by even Polish people. This is like torture to me, because I don't like doing this. Because we're also hungry to give people videos on YouTube. And then where am I going with that? And here comes the Snuffleupagus. Snuffleupagus is gonna suck your camera up. David made me make this video because, is that what you want me to say?